Like, how is this even our life?
Life these days.
She's supposed to be here right now. Mommy. Mommy. Ma.
Denise Broadie, a bright and happy lady, was suddenly diagnosed with breast cancer in 2017, which was cleared after years of her going into remission. Everybody was happy for her, but Denise shockingly remained sick for several years without any specific reason. Doctors just could not find what the problem was for several years. She lost her memory and suffered for years, but she was ultimately diagnosed with AIDS out of nowhere after being in and out of the hospital for 5 years.
She asked the judge to deny bond.
He gave 2 women HIV. One of them died from it.
It would later come to light that it was someone who was really close to her that intentionally transmitted the disease to her and kept silent all through the years while they were trying to find out what is making her sick.
While in the hospital, every now and then, my mama would know who we were and talk to us. Looking at this video, I am happy, then angry, thinking about how this man had us all fooled. He is a master of disguise. If there are any other victims, please come forward and press charges.
What monster transmits such a deadly thing to another person intentionally? Well, this is the story of Denise Broadie. Let's get into it. Hello and welcome to Twisted Crimes. Subscribe and hit the like button for more stories. 65-year-old Denise Broadie, a mother of 3, got married to 61-year-old Cleveland Broadie, whom she thought would be the best man in the world for her, but unfortunately turned out to be the worst man she would ever come across in her life. Denise's problem started in 2017 when she was diagnosed with breast cancer. She went into remission shortly after, but in 2019 it came back, attacking her lungs. After years of off and on hospital extended stays and chemotherapy, the cancer had cleared once again, but Denise remained sick. She was so happy that she had beaten cancer, but wondered why she was still sick.
Want me to take your picture? No? I can't take your picture? No. Why? You look pretty. Tell me what today is and I won't take your picture. Now, what's today? Who am I? Who am I? I'm Cleveland then. Hey baby. Hey sugar. My name Cleveland. Hey baby. Boo. Boo. I'm Cleveland. Okay. Ain't nobody then. I'm T.
Denise remained in the hospital for 5 long years despite her just beating cancer. Everyone was around her, including her husband Cleveland Broadie. He told her daughters that he always prays for her and hopes she gets better soon. Denise would eventually move to a different hospital to see new doctors who ran new tests, ultimately diagnosing the 65-year-old with AIDS. It was full-blown AIDS after 5 years of no treatment. Her family members were shocked, especially knowing that she was a faithful lady. After a bit of digging, they got to realize that her husband Cleveland was HIV positive and had been like that since 2006. He married her and never disclosed that part of his life to his wife. She could have been saved from this 5 years torture if he had come up to tell them what he had done to her. She went through hell for 5 years not knowing what was killing her despite beating cancer. She didn't know that his so-called husband who comes to check her in the hospital was the same person who had infected her.
While in the hospital, every now and then, my mama would know who we were and talk to us. Looking at this video, I am happy, then angry, thinking about how this man had us all fooled. He is a master of disguise. If there are any other victims, please come forward and press charges. You deserve justice because just like us, you were deceived.
Okay. We ready for you to get up too. Corey asked me where you was. I had to tell him you was in the room. He did. So he can pass his test. He said, "How Granny doing?" I said, "She fine. She back there."
So they know we don't want her going back to Rockdale.
Good.
They say they may be able to keep her here and just do a complete workup. They say they don't want to use nothing Rockdale had. They're going to do all their own stuff. If she don't stay here, it'll just be another hospital, but not Rockdale.
Right.
So hopefully she can stay here.
Yeah. Because look like they pretty consistent with everything.
Yeah.
It was later learned he got another lady infected with the deadly virus while she was in the hospital. 2 days after doctors detected the AIDS virus, Denise sadly passed away. Her daughters were upset with what this man had done to their mom, so they pressed charges and he was charged with murder.
Like, how is this even our life?
Life these days
She's supposed to be here right now.
looks a lot like reminiscing for sisters Tammy Hammonds and Karen Young.
I like that one too.
In 2017, doctors first diagnosed their mom, Denise Broadie, with breast cancer. She went into remission, but 2 years later, the cancer came back, this time attacking her lungs.
The decline was so rapid.
Are you comfortable?
After years of on and off hospital extended stays and chemotherapy, the cancer had cleared. But Denise somehow was still sick. The family had new doctors run new tests again for everything. Karen recalls doctors determining her 65-year-old mom was dying, but not from a malignant mass.
Then they end up calling us, telling us that she's not going to beat this. You need to take her off the ventilator and she's not going to make it because she has HIV, she has AIDS.
Denise died April 2nd, 2022, and based off her blood work,
She was in full-blown AIDS after having untreated, undiagnosed HIV for at least 5 years.
the person who gave it to her was not unknown. Criminal records allege it was her husband, Cleveland Broadie.
Mr. Broadie, you are charged at this time with the sole count of reckless conduct, HIV-infected person. It is a felony charge. Would you like the court to read your warrant aloud?
No, ma'am.
The warrants read, this was no accident, instead intentional. Detectives claim medical files reveal Broadie knew of his status since 2006. The charging documents cite Broadie did endanger by consciously disregarding a substantial and unjustifiable risk that his act or omission of not telling his wife his status resulted in her death.
How long have you lived in Conyers?
10 years.
Inside the courtroom on July 11th, Denise's entire family anxiously watched the bond hearing.
I am going to deny bond, finding you at risk of flight.
Outside the courtroom, they breathe a somber sigh of relief for a case that only came after the family's investigation led to Rockdale County Sheriff's Office doing its own.
I do not think my mother was the first.
As the hearing wrapped for one charge, prosecutors filed another. New warrants detail a second victim just accused the 61-year-old of not disclosing his status and having unprotected sex with her. What's more, the sheriff's office says investigators have reason to believe there are other victims. If Broadie were convicted of felony reckless conduct HIV-infected person, he would only face up to 5 years. It used to be up to 10 years, but advocacy groups like Georgia Equality fought to change the law last year with SB 164 to decriminalize and destigmatize HIV status. But the group argues this new law wasn't intended for cases like Broadie's, who police say knew his status and had criminal intent.
So the particular instance in which someone would be arrested and charged with HIV transmission without disclosure was very, very rare.
Georgia Equality's HIV policy manager and former prosecutor Chauncey McGathery maintains most often HIV spreads because people do not know their status. Georgia ranks second in the country for new HIV diagnosis. The metro area is of specific public health concern. Fulton sits at the 6th highest U.S. county for new cases.
People aren't dying from HIV and AIDS. Like, this is not a death sentence, especially in 2023.
Absolutely, and that's critical information.
It did not have to be a death sentence for Denise either.
If he had just gave her that one courtesy, just to tell her that, to test herself for it, and that could be it, and she could have gotten treatment.
Her daughters had a lot of good things to say about their mother.
Tammy, if you would tell us who Denise was.
How do I describe Mama? To sum her up, she was so larger than life, but she was such a light. She was such a light, and the matriarch of our family, a friend, a aunt, just an all-around girl's girl. The life of the party. Yes. Yeah.
What would you add, Karen?
That she was, the older sister to several brothers. She was laughter, a ball of laughter. She was spunky, sassy.
Yes.
Like she.
You.
Yes, yes.
Your
yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. She actually found a lump in her breast in like the end of 2017.
End of 2017.
And we were going on a family vacation actually when she was notified a month or so before that it was breast cancer. And we were going on a family vacation, all the kids, grandkids, everybody. It was her sister, her nieces, like it was a whole family. And we could tell on vacation that something was on her mind because she was really distant.
Okay.
And she kind of laid around a lot and was kind of silent. And Mama was never silent.
Never.
But one thing, she loved breakfast. So every morning she got up and cooked breakfast on vacation.
Yeah.
So she was still getting up cooking breakfast, but she wasn't really interacting with us. And so when we got back, did she tell us there or when?
She told us when we got back home.
We got back
she called
home.
us all over.
Oh,
Yeah.
After she got confirmation.
Yeah. And so then, we knew that she was about to battle breast cancer and that she was going to start chemotherapy. She opted to have a lumpectomy instead of a mastectomy.
Okay.
And so...
and what is that? What's the difference between those two?
Well, the mastectomy is when they remove your breast.
Okay.
The lumpectomy when they just focus on the lump.
Okay.
And so her treatment plan was to, focus on shrinking the lump and then removing it. And so that's the steps she took. So she went through that process and it was a journey. She was real ill sometimes, not real ill, but like after her treatments, every now and then she would be a little down
from the treatment.
Yes, from the treatments and things. It kind of, it changed her body. The radiation part is real harsh on the tissue, so that was the worst part for her, the radiation. She lost her hair, of course. Tammy had to give her a nice, beautiful haircut.
Yeah,
I cut mine as well, just in solidarity.
Yeah. She was pretty no matter what.
Yeah.
And so during that battle, we went through that, 2017, all the way to like the end of the beginning of 2019. She went into remission. They said, the breast cancer had cleared up. We rung the bell. We were excited. We were moving on to the next journey. So
had a good time.
And she was really, it was like,
yeah. Like, I beat this.
Yes.
Let's celebrate.
Yes.
Typical Mama, know, and everybody showed up.
Did.
Cousins came in. That was Stride.
But that was the Susan G. Coleman.
Oh, that was Susan G. Coleman. Okay. Yeah. So everybody in the family was excited. They came in from South Carolina. All of our friends and family that live here in the city came out and support. It was a big celebration. So yeah, she was excited. She was a warrior.
Yes. Absolutely. And so she went into remission. And how long was she in remission before? It wasn't long.
It was
like a year.
So she started having problems breathing. It started there. Okay. She started to, couldn't walk really far without
being out of breath.
Being able to catch her breath. And so it kind of started with lung issues. We thought, she went to several doctors. They said it was probably something from the chemo or, her body just hadn't really totally healed from the chemo. So, but that started to progress, and Mama liked to travel.
Yeah.
And so she had trips planned, and she had a trip planned to Martha's Vineyard for the summer because her niece has some real close connections with like Shaq and, she always wanted to go to Martha's Vineyard because she associated that with the Obamas and
Right.
she loved them.
Yeah.
And so this
The
was the trip.
Kennedys.
And the Kennedys.
She had to go see where JFK plane went
Oh,
down,
wow.
all of that stuff.
Wow.
But she was feeling really under the weather for
she
that
was
vacation,
sick.
and that was in 2021.
Yeah. So she rang the bell 2019, February, Valentine's Day.
Yes.
2019, she rang the bell. She started to have issues summer.
That summer?
No. Summer of 21.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Spring to summer of 21.
When it got really bad.
When it got really
Okay,
bad. Yeah.
Now, was she having to still go back to the doctor in those interims?
Yeah.
Like
she
from the
was
time
going
she
to the
rang the bell up until?
Yeah.
Okay.
Routine
so they're
things
checking
and
her
things that would
everything.
just come up.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah. She stayed at the doctor. You
Yeah.
know, if Mama didn't, like if she had a sore, she's going to go to the doctor. What's this?
Okay.
You know, she battled shingles. Was that after?
Yeah, that was after chemo and everything.
Yeah,
After
okay,
she went in remission, she had a bout with shingles. It was very painful for her.
Yeah.
So she stayed at the doctor. I mean, she went through all her yearly checkups. She had her thyroid.
Yeah.
She had thyroid problems. That
Now,
ran in
had
the family.
she had? Oh, that was
Hereditary.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so she, constantly stayed at the doctor. I mean, her medical records is
extensive.
Yes. And so she was, and then she was more focused on the breathing thing because that was a big part. Why can't I breathe?
Yeah. Why am I
kept
so
getting-
winded? Even at work,
Yeah.
she.
Oh, she was still working?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
she went back to work. She went back to work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. She worked up until she couldn't anymore in 20 when it got really bad in 2021.
Yeah.
In
Summer.
September.
Yeah. Because we were in Florida with the kids when
And that's
Cammie
when she
had to
went to
come.
the emergency
Yeah,
room.
that was like June, July. It started summer of 21 and it just got progressively worse.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep. And that's when they found water, fluid on her lungs.
Wow.
Yeah. And when they tested the fluid, they said it had cancer cells in it. Yeah.
So then that's when you all was like, okay, it's back.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so now this time around, how was that the second bout with cancer? Now they found the fluid where?
In her lungs.
In her lungs. Okay.
Yeah, she had to have fluid removed from her lungs because she couldn't breathe.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah.
I got
And so when they removed the fluid, they tested the fluid and found that it had cancer cells in it. And then at that point, they diagnosed her with metastatic breast cancer.
Breast cancer.
Yeah,
Okay.
because those cells matched the previous breast cancer cells. So now it's moved to her lungs.
Okay. So now what's the difference between the first diagnosis to when it returns? What's the difference in her condition?
Oh, it was a stark difference. Like it didn't even, like cancer is doing all of this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
What was some of her anguish? Like what was it?
The weight loss.
The weight
So it was
loss,
a lot of
extreme weight
She
loss.
drastically lost weight, like within a month or so. Like she lost 10 pounds and she lost her appetite. She couldn't eat anything.
The fatigue.
Yeah, she was so weak and
She was
tired.
lethargic a lot. She was not herself. You just gave, recounted like how you
How
knew
she
her to be.
was, yeah.
She was the polar opposite of how you were accustomed. Any of us was accustomed to her functioning and being like.
But she kept
Yeah,
moving forward and we had faith that, another bout with cancer, we beat it the first time, we'll beat it this time.
Right.
But the weakness and the how she went down this time was not like the first time. We knew
It
this
was faster.
Yeah, we knew this was something different.
Okay.
This was going to be worse.
And so is that what led you guys to say, okay, well, maybe it's something a little deeper here? Because I know at one point you guys were seeking out different professional opinions. So what caused you to say, wait a minute, this might not be, it might be the same thing, but we may not have to be able to go the same route that we went the first time. When did you see or notice it was a difference?
They kept we're saying this doesn't look like cancer because she is so weak and she sometimes she don't even know where she is. She's losing her memory, and she's not eating and this drastic weight loss and she keeps getting feverish and something is different. And they would tell us it's the sickness.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, she's had cancer before, and they're like, well, this is metastatic. Do you something she's going to have to live with? And, so we didn't like the answers they were giving us. So we said, let's second opinion. Let's find out if there's something else, or maybe the treatments they're giving her are not working or a little harsh. So we went to the Cancer Treatment Center of America to get a second opinion.
Okay. Now, how does that work? Is that an actual doctor's hospital?
Yes, it's a whole facility in on the south side. Yes,
in Noonan.
Oh, okay.
So we scheduled an appointment with them. They come in, and I thought that they would do a full workup of their own, but really they just got her medical records from her doctor and kind of.
But they took blood and everything. I was in.
Yes, so Tammy took her the first day because it was a weekend thing.
Yeah,
like
it was a whole process. So I started it and Kay finished it.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean I thought they were going to do a more in-depth finding than just consulting with her medical records. I thought they were going to take their, draw their own blood and compare and, but they ended up telling Kay that they wouldn't do anything different, maybe just
less harsh treatment. Her current oncologist had her on 2 doses of chemo, and they said that was kind of strong to them, and they would, lower the dosage. That's the only thing. Yeah. But they would give her the same type of chemo.
Okay.
Instead of changing that, they would just lessen the dosage because apparently she couldn't handle it. And they did say she had fluid on her lungs. They can see that her lungs had like a spider web on it. And that was the cancer kind of expanding over her lung. It looked like a spider web to them. And so he said, the chemo treatments would help with that. And so Mom, she loved her oncologist. She loved Dr. Mendenberg and didn't want to change.
She really believed in him.
She didn't want to leave.
No.
So
because we were willing to drive her to Noonan for treatment.
Okay.
Yeah. We made that clear to her, this is important to us. Don't you worry. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You just focus on getting better. If we need to drive you to Noonan, but when they said they wouldn't do anything different, she was like, there's no need in y'all,
going out your
way to bring me
over here
and able to do the same. So by this time, it's the second or third, the second opinion?
This is the second opinion.
Yeah, second opinion.
Okay, so there's an interim in there where I guess she continues in the treatment that they suggest, the second opinion as well as her own doctor suggest. What made you go for a third opinion at that point?
The fluid kept building up on her lungs and she couldn't breathe. And again, we didn't like the answers from her oncologist. Why she liked this, every time she would have a chemo treatment, her white blood count would drop, totally disappear. And so their answer was to give her shots to build her white blood count up.
Okay.
And so that's what they would do. Give her a couple shots to build up her white blood cells and we'll give her another round of chemo. Once her white blood count comes back up, no matter how weak she is, no matter how sick she is, we can't stop these chemo treatments.
Right.
Okay.
And we didn't like that.
Okay.
So, Tammy's friend, Kay, she's a nurse, and my mom, she's like a daughter, and my mom trusted her opinions. And so Kay suggested that, she go see one of her oncologist friends at the, University of Georgia.
Okay.
In Athens.
Okay.
And so she scheduled that appointment for us. So we drove to Athens and sat down with the doctor there. He reviewed her medical records, didn't do his own workup. They did check for fluid in her lungs and said that it was a lot of fluid. She needed to get it drained again. But he basically said the same thing because he was actually a colleague of her
current
oncologist.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So they were out of similar practices or something, I guess. And so she again opted, well, if you wouldn't do anything different, then I might as well stay where I am.
Exactly. But she was never really able to tolerate chemo.
No.
Even the first
second time around.
the second time.
The second time around. She was not, she could never really tolerate it, especially if she didn't have them shots.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And then that didn't even,
like really break down this next phase, because the thing that seems most crazy to me is you guys went and got first opinions, second opinions, third opinions. You did everything you were supposed to do, and it just still seems like the medical team or they just dropped the ball. To me, if you're going to do if I'm asking you for extensive testing, test me for everything.
But isn't this indicative of what Black women are experiencing with the healthcare system?
And you knew it was not, or it didn't feel like cancer. Why?
We do have a family history of cancer. So we've seen people battle different types of cancer, and mostly breast cancer, which is the diagnosis that our mother got. So it just didn't give off all the things that would typically that came along with fighting cancer. It didn't.
And Kay, you mentioned that she got tested for everything, but they didn't test her for HIV. So get us to that point where we find out that that is actually what it is. She was HIV positive, correct?
Well, so she was started out at Rockdale, where we asked them to test for everything. We didn't like the results we were getting from the staff there. So we fought to get her moved to Emory University. And it was a fight.
Yeah, because initially we thought it was neurological, and they didn't have a neuro team there. So
absolutely, because she couldn't remember who we was. I have footage of her not knowing my name. They did diagnose her with CMV.
What is that?
It's a virus that lays dormant in you, and it's caused by the chickenpox virus. And
shingles, all of that.
Yeah. Shingles is associated with it as well. So they did get some fluid from her spine at Rockdale and tested the fluid and found that she had CMV virus, which they said had traveled to her brain and caused the encephalopathy that she was experiencing. And so they started her on a dose of it was almost like a
antiviral, but almost like a chemo.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which had the same results as any other chemo treatment. White blood counts drop. Now you have to give her these shots to build a white blood count or stop the treatment. And so that was the cycle we were going through with Rockdale. They were still trying to do treat CMV with the chemo, and she was getting worse. She ended up with bed sores there because they weren't turning her and stuff. So we fought to get her moved because we were like, something else is going on in her brain. This can't just be CMV encephalopathy. So they did eventually move her to Emory University. In the beginning, they started her on the same path as Rockdale. It was a transfer. They wanted to test her brain. They went through the the neuro doctors and things.
And they did their own testing there.
Yes, absolutely. In the beginning, they just treated her based off of what they got from Rockdale. So they were giving her, she was seeing an infectious disease doctor at Rockdale. And then so when she went to Emory, she started to see an infectious disease doctor because CMV is an infectious disease like HIV. Yes. So they assigned her an infectious disease doctor. Well, this doctor at Emory, I spoke with him and he told me that he didn't think this was CMV. He thought maybe it was something different. But they were going to continue on that path until they got all of her medical records from Rockdale Piedmont. And so that's what they did. They continued on that path. Well, she ended up catching COVID and
ended up on a ventilator.
Wow.
Yeah, they ended up putting her on a ventilator at Emory because she had pneumonia. So she really couldn't communicate with us at that point. And again, the infectious disease doctors at Emory didn't believe that it was CMV, that something else was causing what she was going through. And so they made the decision to test her for HIV.
Wow.
Because that was, he said, what else could it be in his mind? This is something different. Has anybody tested her for HIV? And he did. On March 28th,
wow,
he tested her for HIV. Well, by this time, we had gotten a call that she had been on the ventilator for 15 days and they couldn't keep her on that ventilator any longer.
Palliative care was calling us in.
And we had to make a decision on whether or not to take her off life support or to trach her. And
there's no coming back from trach.
Yeah. That was what Tammy said.
Yeah. We knew mom didn't want that either, And
She told us that.
Yeah, she told us that she didn't want to be, a vegetable. And we had end of life type conversations before, when you're dealing with cancer and everything.
Yeah.
You have to have those tough conversations and stuff. So we knew that traching her wasn't going to be an option. So after that, it was just a matter of coming to terms with her, what's going to happen when we take her off of the life support. Will she be able to breathe on her own? And so what they said to us was that they were just going to make her comfortable.
Okay.
Cleveland's defense argued that Cleveland should not be remanded in jail, and they had a bail hearing which was really emotional for her kids.
His actions suggest a continued danger to our community. We urge this court to consider the severity of his charges, his past behavior, and the irreversible harm already caused.
Denise Broadie's family urged the court to keep Cleveland Broadie behind bars as he awaits trial.
Cleveland Broadie is a danger to not just Rockdale County, not just the state of Georgia. He's a danger to anywhere he goes to women.
State Prosecutor Jennifer Hendy echoed the family's concerns, calling Broadie a significant threat to women in the community. She asked the judge to deny bond.
He gave 2 women HIV. One of them died from it. He also had sex unprotected with 3 other women without disclosing it.
The Rockdale County man faces charges of felony murder and malice murder. He's accused of knowingly infecting his late wife with AIDS. The Brodies married in 2014. Denise Broadie died in April of 2022. She had been diagnosed with cancer for a second time when doctors eventually realized she had AIDS. She died 2 days later. Cleveland Broadie was initially charged with reckless conduct related to HIV a year after his wife's death. But Denise Broadie's family pushed for a murder charge after doing their own investigating to try to prove Cleveland Broadie knew he had HIV before meeting his wife. Now, Broadie was granted an $800,000 bond. The judge ordered Broadie to take his AIDS medication and not engage in sexual activity while out on bond.
We do hope justice is served in this case. Denise did not deserve to die this way, especially after surviving cancer. It's ridiculous to know that Cleveland knew all along what was wrong but let the innocent lady suffer for 5 years without treatment. He also went ahead to infect another lady he had an affair with while Denise was on the sick bed. What a pathetic person to be married to. Our sincere condolence to the friends and families of Denise Broadie. May her soul continue to rest in peace and may she receive the justice she deserves. Please stay safe out there and we shall see you guys in the next video.